All right, everyone, get ready, because today we are diving into the world of software design patterns, specifically the chain of responsibility.
Right.
And don't worry, you don't have to be a coder to get this one.
Okay.
We're going to break it down nice and easy using this presentation we have from Attribute Overload.
Okay.
It's got some great visuals in it and even a little code to help us explain.
Awesome.
So by the end of this, you'll know what this pattern is all about, but you'll also see how cool it is and how it works in the real world.
Yes. So what's really cool about this chain of responsibility pattern is how it streamlines decision making in software.
Okay?
So imagine a request being passed along a chain,
Okay.
like a baton in a relay race, right?
I like that.
Until it gets to the object that can handle it.
Okay, I love that analogy.
Yeah.
I can picture it, a relay race.
Yeah.
But let's maybe make it a little more relatable.
Yeah.
The presentation uses a marketing team as an example, which I think will be helpful.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's say there's a request that comes in for a new social media campaign.
Okay.
You wouldn't just throw that at the graphic designer right away.
Right.
No.
Definitely.
You'd want to think about it a little more strategically.
Yeah, I'd want to give that to the social media manager first.
Exactly. They're the first point of contact.
Yeah.
And if that request is in their wheelhouse, then they handle it right there.
Right.
But if it needs a higher level of approval,
Okay.
maybe there's budget stuff or whatever, they would then pass it up the chain,
Okay.
maybe to a marketing director or something.
So each person in the chain has a certain level of authority.
Exactly.
And that request is basically climbing the ladder until it gets to the right person.
Yeah.
I actually see a visual here in the presentation
Oh, cool.
that shows this perfectly.
Yeah.
It's these little characters chained together, and they're each holding a bucket.
Oh, so those are the requests.
Yes, exactly.
That's cool. I like that.
So yeah.
Visual.
Yeah, and it's each of them is responsible for a certain weight or a certain type of bucket.
Right.
And the presentation does a really good job with these visuals, I think, of making something that sounds complicated really easy to picture.
Yeah, definitely.
But speaking of easy to grasp, I'm excited to look at this code example because I think this is really going to bring it home for people, even if they're not hardcore coders.
For sure.
It looks like we have some C++ code here. Is that right?
We do.
Okay.
Yeah, this is a really good example of how this pattern works.
Okay.
So we've got these 3 different handler classes.
Okay.
Define a manager, a senior manager, and a general manager.
Okay.
And each of them has a handle request method.
Okay, so for people who don't code, can we just quickly break down what a class and a method is?
Yeah.
Just real quick.
So a class, think of it like a blueprint.
Okay.
For creating different parts of your software.
Okay.
And the method is the actions that those parts can take.
Gotcha. So it's our characters with the buckets.
Exactly.
Each of them are equipped to handle a different type of request.
Yeah.
And just like in our example with the marketing team, each of these managers probably has a different level of authority when it comes to approving things.
Exactly.
Which in this case is budget requests.
Right on, yeah. So a request for, say, $500
Okay.
might be fine for a manager to approve.
Yeah.
But a request for $5,000?
Yeah.
That's going to need the eyes of someone a little higher up.
Okay.
Like a senior manager or even the general manager.
Right.
But the cool thing is the client who's making that request.
Right.
They don't need to know which manager can actually handle that.
That's a good point.
Right.
I like that. That actually reminds me of that concept of decoupling.
Yes.
That we talk about in software design a lot.
Absolutely.
You want to make sure that different parts of your code aren't too intertwined.
Right, exactly. And that's what gives this pattern that flexibility.
Oh.
So you want to add a new type of handler to the chain.
Yeah.
Go for it.
Easy.
You need to rearrange them, no problem.
Right.
You can do all that without having to rewrite the entire client code.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Now that's efficiency.
For sure.
Okay, so speaking of flexibility,
yeah,
the presentation also talks about how this pattern allows for dynamic handling.
Right.
Which basically means that the chain itself can change.
Exactly.
Depending on the situation.
Yeah.
What does that actually mean, in real life?
Yeah, so picture this. A manager goes on vacation.
Happens
to the best of us.
Yeah.
Right, with the chain of responsibility.
Right.
You can easily reroute their request to another manager.
Okay.
Maybe a colleague that's covering their work.
While they're on vacation?
While they're at the beach somewhere.
I like it.
Yeah.
So it's not just this like rigid top-down thing.
Exactly.
It's more about like adapting to different needs and different scenarios as they come up.
Right. It's a smart system.
Yeah. Yeah. It's making me think of all the other places that we use this pattern without even realizing it.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
In like everyday systems.
All the time.
Like what about customer service?
Oh, yeah. Great example.
You know, most of the time you call and like the first person you talk to can handle whatever it is.
Right. They have the knowledge to answer like the most common questions.
Right. But every now and then you get someone who has like a really complex problem.
You need a supervisor.
Exactly.
Or a manager.
And they have to like pass you up the chain.
Exactly.
Or even in project management.
Yeah.
A task might need to go to different people on the team.
Right. Different skill sets.
Right. Like if something needs to be designed and developed,
Right.
it might start with the designer and then go to the developer.
Yep. And that's the cool thing about these design patterns.
Yeah.
They offer really elegant solutions
Yeah.
to problems that go way beyond software.
Totally.
You know, it's a way of thinking
Right.
that we can apply to so many different things in life.
Totally. But before we go too far down that rabbit hole,
Right.
I did want to mention one thing that I was thinking about
Yeah.
when we were talking about this whole chain reaction.
Yeah.
I couldn't help but think of that game Telephone.
Oh, yeah.
You know, where like you whisper something around a circle and by the
yeah.
end it's totally different.
Right.
But in this pattern, the request stays the same the whole time, right?
That's a great point, and it's a key difference.
Okay.
The request isn't like that message in telephone at all.
Okay.
It doesn't change as it's going along the chain.
Okay.
Think of it more like a package
Oh, yeah.
that's being carefully examined
Gotcha.
at each stage.
To see who it should go to.
Yeah, who the right recipient is.
Okay, cool. That makes sense.
Yeah.
Okay, so we've covered a lot.
Yeah, we have.
What the chain of responsibility pattern is, how we
Yeah.
can visualize it.
Yeah.
Even looked at a little bit of code.
We did.
But for people listening who are like, okay, this is cool, but like, why do I care? If I'm not writing code,
Good question.
what would you tell them?
I would say this pattern, like a lot of design patterns,
Okay.
gives us valuable insights
Yeah.
that go way beyond coding.
Okay.
You know, at its heart, it's about delegating tasks
Yay.
and responsibilities efficiently
Okay.
and in a way that makes sense.
Right.
And that's something that we all do,
Yeah.
whether we know it or not.
It's like that saying, you know, many hands make light work.
Right.
But in this case, it's like,
It's more like the right hands make efficient work.
yes, exactly.
Yeah.
It's about having the right system
Totally.
where things just flow
Exactly.
to the right place.
To the person who can handle it best.
And we see that everywhere. Like,
Yeah.
what about just in a company?
Oh, yeah.
Like an org chart.
Different departments, different levels of
And I
management.
did that all my life.
Or even in a restaurant,
Oh, yeah, totally.
like a kitchen.
You got your chefs, your line cooks.
It's like a whole chain. Yeah. It's a perfect example.
I'm even thinking about like personal productivity,
Yeah.
like my to-do list.
Oh, yeah.
It's kind of like a chain.
I
It's got different categories,
Right.
different levels of urgency.
Based on what needs to get done when.
Exactly.
Love it.
So it's really about taking this idea of like structured delegation and applying it to
And anything.
anything
Yeah.
to make things better.
Right. Make it all run smoothly.
So as we're wrapping up this deep dive
Okay.
on the chain of responsibility pattern,
Yeah.
think about your own life.
Yeah.
Where do you see this
Wow.
in your work, in your relationships, even just like your daily routines?
It's all about that chain of command.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Could applying this make things better?
That's the question, right?
That's something to think about.
There you go.
And until next time, happy learning, everyone.